And then I got to a point when I was on a beach in Mexico, I was sitting there, I was kind of not even focusing on this work, and I suddenly saw a process, more in a pathway of awareness of how we enter this world and how we get trapped in certain perceptual or emotional situations, but how we enter the world. And also, by seeing that pathway so clearly, I could see how you would need to tread that pathway in reverse to return to yourself. And I realized that I had all the tools, and it was a matter of actually putting together in a process that people could do no matter who they are, where they are, what lifestyle they're leading, and in a way that they could do it for themselves. And that's when I came back to South Africa and started putting the process together, and then going, who wants to play? You know, who wants to come and do it? I did a talk at which there were 90 people that came. I mainly did a talk about the tools of integration, about this experience of integration. And in that talk, which was about 3 hours, for about 10 minutes, I spoke about this process of becoming present. And I just put it in there. And 12 people came forward and said, that thing you mentioned about that process thing, what's that about? And so I started with them. And I said, okay, volunteer. We don't know what's going to happen. I know what the tools do to me, but let's see what it does if I put you through a 10-week process, focusing on these tools to bring you present and to bring your unintegrated memories up and teach you how to resolve them. It was really scary, especially when the first person finished, you know, because at the end of the 10 weeks you want them to have something, you know. And what I realized was that this was not about destination consciousness, and nor was it about fixing anything. And what the process was a way to transform your behavior from reactive consciousness to response consciousness. Really, all the process does is to teach you how to begin taking responsibility for your own experience. And the consequences to that are eternal. When people were going through the procedure, everyone was having great insights and ahas and wow and all these things. But the real feedback came roughly 8 to 9 months after people had done the process. And I realized that there was an 8 to 9 month period, almost like a womb period, in which people had now transformed themselves from reacting to the world because of their suppressed discomfort, their fear, anger, and grief, which was motivating their behavior unconsciously. They went from reacting to the world to actually responding to it. And after many months of learning how to respond to it, their whole experience of life began to change. And really what happened is they entered a journey. And plus what I saw is that they would, after a few weeks or a month or so, go back into the process and have a completely different experience of it, because they were now entering it at a different point of awareness, and it meant something different to them. And then they would enter it again after a few months, and it would be like doing it the first time again. There's no ways I can really train people to do this. The universe trains you to do this sort of work. So either I was going to train a whole lot of facilitators, which I don't want to take the responsibility for, and also because they'll end up going and charging fortunes for this special process, or I find a way to put it in a book so that anyone can read the book. The book trains you, puts you through the process, and gives you an opportunity to do it as often as you want. And that took me about 3 years to get it into a book, into a format. And then of course getting it published, and that process again, also working with Connie Kellerkoff from Namaste Publishing. She also helped me make it a bit more gentle, because I was quite hardcore, and am quite hardcore in approaching these things, but I wanted to make it available for everyone. So the initial process had to be really toned down, because when you are enabling people to bring up their unprocessed memories and emotional stuff, you have to do it in a really responsible, compassionate way. There is no way to say exactly what this process does for you, because in the book I have about 45 different fruits of the process. But basically what the process is about teaching someone to move their awareness to the causal point of their behavior, so they can take responsibility for their own experiences and move out of a state of blame, and that the world is happening to me. I'm radiating my state into the world, and to teach someone how to actually do that experientially. The rewarding thing for me is not really related to what this is doing for other people, because I can never really know what it's doing for other people. And I do see people going through powerful experiences, and I get emails every day from people I don't even know saying this has been life-saving, or it's put everything in perspective. I get emails from PhD psychologists going, at least now we have a model to work with that makes sense. I get all sorts of things. But these things, I don't really pay that much attention to those. What I pay attention to is, what has this done for my experience? And what it's done for me is it's taken me gradually out of operating from a point of fear, out of having my behavior driven by anger, out of having my behavior driven by grief, and enabling me really to move into what I call the trinity of what I aspire to accomplish in this life, which is integrity, intimacy, and authenticity. If I accomplish those things to my satisfaction in this life, it's a life well lived. And so that's what it's doing for me. It's allowing me to become more authentic, become really more of who I am, which means that I can honor who I am in each moment that I'm having. Okay, so if I'm feeling angry, I can honor that. I'm not going to suppress that. It's enabling me to become more intimate. In other words, when I'm with people, to actually be with them and not be triggered by what they're reflecting of my past, and then be distracted by that. And integrity is really about lining up my physical behavior with my mental behavior and my emotional behavior, to have them all reflect each other honestly. Now, for a lot of us in the world, we have physical behavior, but it doesn't really reflect our mental behavior. Because mentally I'm going, and I have these beliefs and stuff about the world, and I'm behaving differently physically. Or it doesn't reflect my emotional behavior. I'm really afraid, and I'm behaving as if I'm more brave. So that's where the integrity comes in. For me, integrity is the same word as structure. I'm the product of my own process, and it's still enabling me to grow. I still use the tools, and it's definitely giving me a life experience far more awesome, and I like the word groovy, than I could ever thought that I would have. And I'm still feeling the fruits of it every day. I'm on a journey. It's not a destination. It's really journey consciousness. One of the things that I figured out for myself is that if this intelligence we call God is an infinite being, then God realization is an infinite journey. And so I've given up this thing that there's a destination of enlightenment or something that I've got to get to. Now I'm learning to enjoy the journey in this moment, honor myself in this moment, honor the moment as it shows itself to me, and not force my practices onto it or my interpretations onto it. That to me is the most rewarding thing. And to find that these transformations in my experience are consistent and permanent. I can't fix anybody. I've figured that one out. And I can't save anybody, and I don't want to be saved or fixed by anybody. And this is not even a spiritual thing. This is really life skills. So what gives me the conviction to continue teaching this to people is I see what it does to myself. And also the more into this moment I get, and I still have my moments of being distracted and all, but the more into this moment I get, the more you can see how other people are suffering. And the only reason they are suffering is because they're not here. And the only reason they are suffering too is because they don't realize they are responsible for the consequences of their thoughts, words, and deeds. And those thoughts, words, and deeds are what are creating this moment's experience for them. That's the real suffering, not the physical pain or the mental or the emotional stuff. The real suffering is not empowering ourselves and knowing that we're responsible for our experience. If I don't have a clue I'm responsible for my experience, I'm continuously looking for a political organization or a spiritual organization or somebody outside myself to take care of me and fix things. And that's real suffering. And that places a person who's a beggar at a traffic light begging for food and a person who's in a BMW who's stressed out from their job in the same playing field. Consequences. We're all responsible for our own consequences. And the causal point of those consequences for me are what's going on in my emotional body.